As a newbie investor, it's very scary to have to deal with maintenance or like these house calls that have to happen in the middle of the night. And so I think there's a little bit of a peace of mind aspect with buying a new property for that reason alone.
I think that's the number one benefit of owning new construction is it's a little bit easier to understand your numbers. New construction is a way to create your own inventory.
There's three ways to get into the build to rent game. There are buying a bad house. It's the biggest fear for real estate investors, right? You know those houses with the hidden plumbing nightmares or the foundation issues or the leaky roof that just crush your cash flow dreams. Well, what if I told you that there's a real estate strategy that sidesteps all of that? A strategy that works no matter the market or the economy. It's often overlooked, seriously underutilized, but incredibly powerful. And that strategy is build to rent, AKA new construction. And today I've got the one and only Coach Carson with me, and we're gonna be breaking down the three proven paths that you can take today to get you started in the world of build to rent. It's not as scary as you think, I promise. You got this. Let's dive in. Chad Carson, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Good to be here.
Well, man, every time we do a podcast, it seems to go viral on thy channel. So third time's a charm. We gotta crush this.
Help us out, people. Let's do this. Let's have a good conversation.
All jokes aside, the reason I think that our videos do so well is because we talk about financial freedom and really breaking down basic concepts in the world of real estate in a way that relates to newbie investors looking to get into the game. Today, I want to talk about one of the most underutilized strategies, in my opinion, here in 2025 that still working pretty well for a lot of people. And that's the concept of build to rent. So can you briefly explain how does that work and what does it even mean?
Yeah, it's super simple. It just means buying a new construction house instead of buying a house that's existing, like an older house, something from the 1920s, 30s, 50s, 80s, whatever. That's what a lot of investors do. What we're talking about here, build to rent, is you are either partnering with a builder or acquiring it. We can talk about how you get these, but you're buying a new construction rental and then you're turning that new construction property into a long-term rental for yourself and letting your tenants move in. That's the basics.
Okay, so general premise, instead of going out and buying an old 1950s house, you're going and buying something that's newly constructed. I think a lot of people, it seems obvious, first and foremost, but I think the apprehension that a lot of people have with just that concept is, well, I don't know how to build. I've never picked up a hammer before. And if I buy something that's already built, isn't that incredibly expensive compared to the 1950s fixer?
Yeah, so expensive is a tricky word, right? Because sometimes, I'll tell a real brief story. Some of the cheapest properties I've bought in my career, 22 years being a rental investor, some of the cheapest prices I paid ended up being the most expensive lessons and expensive properties I had because I spent a lot of money over time. Like, yes, the purchase price was lower, but every year I'm losing money because I'm having to fix this plumbing problem and fix this roof problem and two trees are, falling on the house all the time. So expensive, yes, new construction, you're probably going to pay more, or in many cases, more than you will for the equivalent house that's an existing house, but the houses fall apart. And so you're buying a brand new house. The things that are in the house are newer, so they're going to break less. So you can get a little bit of a premium on the rent in many cases, not always, and so you get a brand new product that appeals to your tenants better. So expensive we're always looking for a return on investment, right? So we have to buy a property, whether it's new construction or old, that makes you money, that is going to make you money over the long run. We're in this for a business. So that's the main question. Can you make money with new construction? Yes, you can do it. You got to be careful with it on how much you pay, what locations you buy in. You can't just go buy any old new construction property and say, oh, that's a great rental property. Like we can talk about what makes a good deal. You can't abandon your investment criteria just because you're buying new construction. But if you can do it, if you can get a deal that's in a good location that meets all your investment criteria and is new, I have found that I really like that type of property. I've always owned older properties, and I've started buying more new construction and partnering with builders because I really like the low maintenance, a little bit more passive nature of owning a new property.
Completely agree. I've got a couple new constructions that I've built. I'm building new constructions as we speak, or I'm in the process of breaking ground. A lot of plus sides that we'll get into. Really today we're going to talk about the three ways to break into build to rent. But before we do, I want to talk about something you already touched on a little bit, the real estate investor killer. Actually, I don't think, maybe bleep that out, Caleb. I don't think I'm allowed to say the K word on YouTube. And now everyone's like, what did he say? CAPEX. CAPEX is the thing that I think a lot of investors really don't take into account when they're analyzing a property. So CAPEX, for anyone at home that doesn't know that term, short for capital expenditures. And these are basically all of the major systems within your property that will basically go out over the term of owning that property for 30 years. So think about major appliances, AC, roof, what are some other
foundation, plumbing, electrical?
Yeah.
I mean, think about this from in life, everything breaks down, right? Like our bodies break down, unfortunately, that's, but houses and properties, every single thing has a lifespan. So like a driveway, I've had to replace some driveways on my properties. Those might have a 60, 70 year life, but if they're cement, or 20 or 30 years of their asphalt. So if you just think about it, everything is falling apart. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take. And so the older the property you buy, you're inheriting some of these things that are like halfway through or 90% of the way through. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I have made. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see real estate investors making, is underestimating capital expenses. It's huge. It's one of it'll turn your whole rental property upside down if you underestimate those.
But let's talk about build to rent, which is, everyone's like, just get to the title that you promised us, man. The reason we're talking about CAPEX is because on older properties, it's nearly instant that something is going to break. That's usually the case. Build to rent, you buy yourself a little bit of time, and it's not to say that you shouldn't save up for CAPEX, but I think what we're getting at is with build to rent in a new construction property, you are likely not going to replace your roof or your driveway or your AC in the first 5 to 10 years. That's if everything goes well.
Exactly. Yeah. The big stuff too. I think some of the bigger expenses I've had on non-new properties have been plumbing. Like, just think about how many times you send a plumber out to fix that old copper fixture that has a little pinhole leak, or the pipes that go up into the wall.
Galvanized pipes. Yep.
Yeah, the galvanized pipes. I mean, there's just everything is older. It's just going to cost you more. Even trees. Like, trees have been one of the most expensive parts of my rental business the last 3 or 4 years. So trees falling. We had a hurricane come through South Carolina, North Carolina, and yes, insurance pays for a lot of that, but you have this deductible. So every time a tree falls on your property, you have to pay the deductible. So long story short, you're going to save. I think that's the number one benefit of owning new construction is it's a little bit easier to understand your numbers. That the actual cash flow you think you're going to get is probably what you're going to get.
Right.
And you still got to run your numbers, but it's just the older properties it's just trickier to figure that out.
Yeah, and then same thing with maintenance. I've got a lot more maintenance on my short-term rentals, just in general, because you got to have people coming in and out. But I have a lot less maintenance on new construction because everything's new. Nothing's really breaking. Like, you don't have to replace wax seal, wax ring. There we go. In a toilet, you don't have to change out a hose bib. You don't have to do that stuff for so long. And so the reason we love this strategy. I'm speaking for you. I think you'd agree. But the reason I love this strategy is because for a newbie investor that doesn't want to deal with the stereotypical like leaky toilets and all that stuff, there are way more things that I've actually never had a leaky toilet. So I should find another example.
Yeah,
but
why is that the example everybody brings up?
I don't know. I feel like on Bigger Pockets, that was just always like the ad, like, you're tired of leaky toilets?
Yeah.
Well, sign up for blank brand and we help you manage that. But I feel like you just never deal with that. And as a newbie investor, it's very scary to have to deal with maintenance or like these house calls that have to happen in the middle of the night. And you just won't really deal with that for a while on a new construction. And so I think there's a little bit of a peace of mind aspect with buying a new property for that reason alone.
100%. Can I throw another benefit out at you for new construction? One other reason I like it. One of the biggest conversations in the real estate investing world for the last year or two has been lack of inventory. Like the inventory has been cut in half from what it was just listed properties, because people are just hanging on to their properties. So one of the hardest things is like finding good deals. And so new construction is a way to create your own inventory instead of going out and expecting to compete with 20 other investors to buy a property, which I still think you can do. But you can actually just say, all right, I'm going to buy a piece of land and I'm going to understand the zoning of that land. And you can create a rental property out of that land. It might be 2 duplexes that you can build on it. And a lot fewer people understand going from the ground and the dirt up to a rental property and building that and how that all works than people who understand, to do the rest of the process. So it's a less competitive, I guess is what I'm trying to say, niche of being able to build your own rentals or buy the dirt, if that's what you choose to do. That's one way of doing build to rent. But other people just buy it directly from the builder. But for those of you who are entrepreneurial, this is a really good opportunity to basically kind of back your way into deals that other people might not know how to do because you're creating the inventory.
Fantastic. Yeah, let me give you my favorite. I think this is like pretty much the number one for me. I mean, trying to figure out if there's something that would supersede this, but usually, well, I guess this will pertain on if you're building it yourself, not with your own two hands, but if you're working with a contractor, typically you're walking into some sort of equity. And so forcing the value of a property by building it from the ground up, that would be by far to me the biggest benefit. If not that, at the very least, you are building something at your cost. Mm-hmm. If you can wait 12 to 18 months to get it built and you're doing the whole process yourself from beginning to end, you're basically building it at your cost, let's say at $400K versus going to the MLS and buying it at someone else's cost plus their markup for $650,000. I mean, I'll tell you, I built a house in Joshua Tree several years ago for $275,000. I sold it for $670,000 the moment it was done. Yep. Awesome payday for me. Awesome. I don't know why I haven't done more of those, but like someone paid nearly $400,000 in markup for my 12 months of work. And so if that same person had just said, you know what, I'll wait a year and I'll just do it myself, they could have saved themselves in that instance many six figures.
100%. Yeah. So the whole name of the game here is building equity and growing it. We've talked about that in our prior conversation. It's like over time you want to turn $50,000 into $300,000, and you can do it with little trickles of cash flow. Like that's cool too. But like the number one way I've done, and I think you too, is by buying a property below its value today. And traditionally people thought you got to buy a fixer upper and do it that way, and that's cool too. But actually buying the dirt and getting the dirt at a discount, and then adding value by like subplatting it or rezoning it, and then getting the permissions from the city, which it can be pretty cumbersome to get all that stuff and to get the sewer tap and all that. Like you're basically doing a flip of the dirt. Like you're turning the dirt into buildable land, and then you're managing the contractor or you're the builder yourself, and you should make some kind of margin on that too, But for me, I'd be curious what you think, Rob, like in terms of margins. I see like a lot of builders when they all in number, it might be like 80%, or so of the full value. So if the property's worth 300,000, they're at like 240 is kind of a consistent number. I try to,
that's what they would profit. Like they would, if it was 300,000, they would sell it for 540 or 600.
Oh, well, I guess, well, that too. What I'm thinking is like the full value is 300,000 in my area, for example, on a new construction property, and then they're in it for 200 to 240, somewhere in there. Like their total cost of dirt, construction, everything. So it's what I'm trying to say here in a long, complicated way is that it's kind of similar. If you're thinking about like flipping a property or doing a BRRRR deal, you try to be in it for like 70 to 80% of the full value. Well, it's the same thing with building. You're trying to have all of your costs, including land, construction costs, contractor fees, hit some number like that, so that you can then refinance it and have maybe some of your money in it, but you're buying equity today. You're just building it instead of doing a fixer upper.
Yeah, let me just clarify on my Joshua Tree example. Unrealistic outcome. Like that was COVID. Yeah. Height of everything.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't do that again. Not like that. A deal like that, I'd be looking to do closer to the numbers that you're talking about. Realistically, maybe I could make a little bit more if I do certain things. But yes, I think what you're saying is spot on. I was just citing really what I'm getting at is you can avoid someone else's markup if you go through the process yourself. And for me, at that time, my markup was high. Hey, really fast. We're talking about building new constructions in today's video, and I know that can be a little bit of a daunting idea when you're first getting started. It was for me when I was, so don't worry, you're not alone. But this is actually what we cover in the Host Camp program. How to find land, how to develop it, and how to build a profitable short-term rental and experience using what we call the destination method. This method has worked for me and thousands of my students, and if you want to learn more about that methodology, I've actually put together a free training for you that you can watch in the description down below. It'll take you through my 7-step process that you can use in your new construction journey. Again, if you want to watch that, I'll leave a link in the description down below for you. Okay, back to the video. So let's talk about there's 3 ways to do this. There's 3 ways to get into the build to rent game. There are, I'll just list them very quickly. Do it yourself, partner with the builder, build to rent retail, just to set the agenda here for the next, for the rest of the podcast. So let's hop into each one of those and explain maybe some of the nuances and give everybody an option. I mean, this will pretty much fit everyone listening today, one of these options. Yeah. So let's hop into number one, doing it yourself.
Do you like to do it yourself?
What does that mean? What does that entail? What does that process look like?
So when we say do it yourself, it could mean you like getting on a ladder and actually like nailing boards together, but it's probably not, right? Like I've interviewed people on my podcast who actually built houses themselves, and that's cool, but that's not me. So what I mean by building it yourself would be you're the one who goes out and finds the dirt. I think that's the biggest value add. If you can, I like, by the way, just as an aside, I like infill lots. So you can go out, like a lot of new construction, like the national builders, they have to buy like massive pieces of property on the edge of town, like, hundreds of acres, so they can build like 500 houses at a time. What we're talking about here, like for small investors, like small and mighty investors that I talk to a lot, is you're just looking for like a nice neighborhood, existing neighborhood, and find a lot or find a house with an extra piece of land that you could carve off a lot. Like that's the ideal property for me, is like building one or two, properties on a lot. And so if you're the one doing it yourself, you're finding that property, you're buying that piece of land, you're getting the entitlements and the zoning, you're figuring out the zoning, you're getting the permits with the city, and then you're hiring a general contractor probably. And maybe if you want to be even more entrepreneurial, you have your own plans drawn up by an architect or some kind of firm, and then you work with your contractor, your builder, to execute the plans that you have on paper, and you negotiate just like you would on a fix and flip. You negotiate with the contractor. And so that's what, to me, doing it yourself means, is meaning you source the deal, you manage the project, and then in the end you keep it as a rental for yourself. Is that the same? Are you thinking about it the same way?
I've done it both. I've done both versions of the DIY. I had a ADU tiny house in LA where I GC'd it really, and then I ran out of money halfway through, had to kick the crew out. I was like, love you guys, but we're out of time and over budget. And so I finished it. I did the finish electrical. I installed the cabinets. I stained the floors, installed the laminate, painted everything, had the breaker box blow up in my face. Minimal eyebrow loss. But so I've done that DIY version. I don't recommend it unless you just have all the time in the world. It's going to be pretty tough to do if you have a 9-to-5 job. But the kind of the way that I've done it in the way I'm doing it now, but like you hire a contractor and exactly, you go out, find the lot, go through the permitting and entitlements, get a bank construction loan, a new construction loan. Typically it's closer to hard money rates. We might do what's called like a one-time close. That's ideal. So basically I get the construction loan from the bank, and then as soon as it's done, it amortizes to a 30-year loan and just becomes a regular real estate, like a regular mortgage at that point. Lots of ways to do that. I've also done it where I paid quote unquote cash for it using like a HELOC and other credit cards and stuff. And then at the end of it, had the bank appraise it and give me 75% of that and cashed me out, got my money back, no money left in the deal, and then had like a 30-year mortgage on it. That's like very ideal. Typically you might leave 10, 15, 20K into a deal oftentimes, but you don't really know until you're in it because the market can change on you.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, a lot of variations, but I think that the theme with the do-it-yourself is that this is like flipping houses or doing BRRRR deals. This is the way to buy the best margins. Like you're gonna get it at the best price possible when you source the land, you manage the property. If you did a lot of the work yourself, you make even better margins. But like for those who have the time, expertise, and energy to do it, this is a route to go. For somebody who's working a full-time job and they have like 2 or 3 hours on the side to invest in real estate, like this is not your thing. Like managing a project like this is a major remodel, and it's a major marketing to find the deal. So there's a lot of money to be made there, but that's for somebody who's willing to be like semi-entrepreneurial, either kind of side hustle or full-time doing the thing.
Yeah. You're not checking in with your contractor once a month. It's like maybe at first when they're doing like the framing and the foundation work, but the moment that drywall is like closed in, man, you are making Amazon and Home Depot and Lowe's orders. I mean, I'm doing this right now with just like a gut job that's effectively making this house a new construction. But like, dude, I am spending hours a day just ordering stuff because my contractor's not like, he's not going to do it the way I can. And he's not going to choose my finishes because I would never trust my contractor to do that. So it's time intensive.
Yeah. So I think that's always a thing. Like you got to know yourself. Like, so we're going to give you 3 options here. This is the DIY option is awesome. I love it, but I'm actually not in this place in my life right now. I used to be in that place, but I'm going to talk, the other 2 options we're talking about is more where I am today, just because of the time investment and the energy it takes to do that right.
Yes, maybe I shouldn't be in this part of my life, but I am. I don't know. I enjoy it. Gives me good content and keeps me fresh, but definitely there's, ordering a faucet on Amazon is just probably not something I should be doing at my level, but here we are.
You're a detail guy. People, you know what you want, and that's I
am picky.
I respect that.
I'm very picky. So that's DIY, and as a result of it taking so much time and being quite intensive of your attention, your equity is going to be larger. Your forced appreciation, kind of like I think your upside for lack of a better term, just going to be greater because you just like there's no cost. The only markup you're paying is your contractors. 15 to 20% probably. Right. So that's method 1, do it yourself. Method 2, partner with the builder. I'm really not as experienced in this side of things. So how does this work?
Yeah, this is what I've been doing lately and kind of playing around with. So we have a builder friend. He's actually a property manager for us too. And I actually had him on my podcast to kind of discuss this, if people want to check that out. But the thing with, he is the one who has expertise doing what we just talked about. Like he does it in bulk. Like he does a lot of building. He builds apartments, he builds houses. So he knows the business a lot better than I did. So I like this idea of borrowing expertise from other people when you don't have it yourself. And so what we've done is a couple different scenarios where he either found the land himself and then he was like, all right, Chad, I need somebody to put up the money to buy this land. I've got a lot of deals going. So we were the money side of things. And we put up the money to buy the land while he did the entitlements and everything. And then we actually put up some more money to actually build the properties. So we were like the hard money lender. And we built 5 houses together. I'll give you the real numbers. And we didn't have enough money to build all 5 of those. So we found other private lenders to put up the money to build some of them. But essentially that was our role, was coming up with the money, doing it quickly, understanding the deal. And then the end result of it was we flipped essentially 3 of those properties. We sold them and we split the profits with the builder. So that was the kind of basic deal. And then the other 2 that we decided to keep, we being like my business partner and I, and we bought out the builder from those 2 properties. So we basically figured out what the profit was on those other 2 deals that we split, and we just had to pay him his profit on the 2 that we kept. So we made a not quite as good a margin as like the total cost in the deal. So we're in it for like probably 84% of the full value of the property, which for us, not having to do any of the work, didn't have to do any of the sourcing. We put up the money, and now we have a new construction property. And the real numbers for us, I think it's a $280,000 full value on the property. It's kind of a starter home in our area, and 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath, and it rents for $1,900. We already have it rented, and we're in it for probably $220 or $225, something like that. So for us, a little bit more passive investor. We want a property that we now have equity in the property. It's in a good location, and we're happy with it. The builder was happy with it, and that's another option.
Okay, so that's okay. Maybe I have done that then, or I'm doing that now. I wouldn't have really classified it as partner with a builder, but I'm building this like double dome tiny home complex. It's like 2 domes with a tiny home in the middle, fully permitted, entitled in Virginia with one of my students, and her father and team, they're building everything. They needed the capital, so they approached me and my partner. They're like, hey, will you guys put up the cash? We'll build it. We'll be 50-50 partners. And we're like, great. So I guess I didn't consider them builders by your definition, but that's basically what they're doing. Yeah. And now we both have exposure. They're in charge of operations, construction, and then management once it's done. And basically I'm the one that has to pay the hard money note every single month. And I got the financial risk in it basically.
And another good lesson from that is that you were the money on that deal. I was the money on my deal. But for those of you who don't have the money, or you run out of money, if you have the skills, the knowledge, the time, you could be on the other side of that and not have to put up any money or very little money. So that's what I find encouraging, is like, depending on what stage of your career you're in, if you have the know-how and the hustle, you can find the money if the deal's right. And you can find, like Rob and I have taken both sides of those deals, either way.
So I guess I'll say this. It's worth noting, if you're talking to a contractor or a builder that's like, hey, I got a good deal, and if you give me $200K, I'll get this thing built. Just make sure that you know the
Careful.
contractor. With my student, she's a dear student of mine. I mean, we've been working together for many, many years. I know and trust her. And Chad, I'm sure you know and trust
Long
your builder.
time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So contractors have a bad name in the industry because a lot of them run with your money. So just make sure you understand or know or have references, and you have the proper paperwork to protect yourself because, I've still been, I in recent history was not scammed by a contractor, but he walked out, he became addicted to meth and left. And I was like, dang it, I can't believe this would happen to me. I'm so good at this. It can happen to anyone.
Absolutely. And even with my good friend, who he is a good friend, I still did draws and I still went out and checked on it. But I think this is such a good point. If you don't trust the person, I don't care what contract you have. I don't care how many times you inspect it. If somebody wants to screw you over, they'll screw you over. Like they'll use half the size. They'll use screws that are half the size that they're supposed to be, or they'll use 2x4s that are not really 2x4. I mean, like, if they want to screw you over, I promise you, they know the business better than you do. So you got to start with slowly getting to know somebody. And like, I would rather pass on a deal and if I had any kind of like reservations, and I have to 100% feel very comfortable with that person and trust them.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's, I actually met this architect in Joshua Tree about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And, he's got these insane blueprints and he like had like a little like figurine set. And I was like, oh, it's nice to like see an architect like really in his craft like this. And, he was the GC on the project and he's raising money for it. He's like got these crazy houses that I'd never seen anything like it before. He goes, yeah, it's going to cost 1.2 million. So, hey, if you're interested. And I was like, well, I don't really have that right now, but I was like, yeah, hit me up. Let's talk about it. Let's see how I can raise funds for it or whatever. That's a great example of him bringing the sweat equity and the concept and the vision to life. I'm bringing the funds in some capacity if we were to formalize this relationship, and I could have this, house that I didn't have to, that I quote unquote, like you said, passively built with, a lot of caveats to the word passively.
Yep.
Okay, so that's number 2, partner with the builder. You're doing this now. I'm kind of doing this now. I may do this with this architect that we talked about. It's actually one of the ways that I got started too. When I built that house in Joshua Tree I referenced, my partner on that was a builder, and we kind of worked out a relationship like that where he managed a lot of that. So number 3, and this might be what I consider like more of a fast track for a lot of people. And granted, remember, you're going to pay a little bit more of a markup on something like this, but this is build to rent retail. Yep. So what does that mean? Like, are you talking retail shopper, window shopping? You're like that house and you can just buy it, or like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So typically this means you have a builder who is building houses that they're going to sell to investors. And I'll give you a couple of examples. And so you're paying retail, meaning you're not buying it at a discount or building it at a discount. Like the first example, the DIY example, you're not going to get in it for 70 cents on the dollar or 80 cents on the dollar. You're probably paying whatever the appraisal value is today. Let's start there. And I'll give you a couple examples. I have a friend, Arion Shihai in Houston, Texas. Actually, you need to meet Arion. But he's a real estate agent, partners with a builder. They build duplexes, new construction in nicer locations, good school districts, and then they sell those properties to their clients. So they might build like 15 at a time, 20 at a time, and then they sell the duplex retail, and the rents and the rent to price ratios still have to be decent, but like most people are buying that are putting 30% down, 40% down. Like they're putting pretty big down payments. But there's features that are really cool about this deal is that the builder negotiates with a lender a bulk interest rate. So they negotiate ahead of time, and the builder pays some extra closing costs essentially in order for you as the buyer, the retail buyer. If the market interest rate was 7%, they're often able to deliver like a 5% or 4.9% 30-year fixed financing because of the basically the closing costs that they're paying to the lender. So what does that mean for me as a retail buyer? Yes, I'm paying a retail price, but I'm in it for the long haul. I like the location, I like the property, I like the low maintenance. And so the cash flow works because I'm making a bigger down payment and because I'm getting a nice low interest rate. And then I hold it for 10, 15 years. And if it's in the right location, that property goes up in value, the rents go up in value, and so it's more of it's semi-passive. So you're a person who has a few hours a week to invest, not somebody who can manage a construction property, and you're able to buy a property like that fits into your long-term portfolio because you're busy at work, you're making $500,000 a year, you're a doctor, you're somebody. So it fits the busy, high-income professional person who wants to invest in real estate. That's a good example of buying retail. And there's still some caveats. Maybe we should talk about those. But in general, that's the deal and why it can make sense.
Yeah, I like the strategy. Again, yeah, so we'll get into the caveats in a second. But sometimes they're like too good to be true, and they're actually true. Like I remember there's several vendors out there. And basically, I think piggybacking what you said, they'll work with these developers that might build out an entire neighborhood. And, sometimes due to the economy, maybe those builders aren't selling out as fast as they thought. So they make certain concessions to these vendors and they'll say, hey, we built this for $200K. We've got it listed for $300K, but, we're just going to take a 25% or whatever, 25K haircut and we'll give it to you for $275 on top of all these other, we just got to get out of this type of thing. And it may not always be a pressure or urgency thing, but sometimes it is. And so basically, I've seen interest rates as low as 3-4% because they offer so many credits that they can buy down that rate from 7% to 5, 4, 3, depending, what you as the buyer want. Sometimes they'll give you a lower interest rate. Sometimes they'll say, hey, instead of bringing 25,000 down, all you have to bring is 5,000 down. Like however you want to use the credit, they usually have a bunch of different options for you, but it's pretty neat. Like I like it. I haven't done it, but I could see myself doing it. It's more of a long-term thing. Like that strategy doesn't work for Airbnb as much. Not that I've seen. So that's why I haven't really explored it, but I know people that have. Seems to be like a solid way to get into it.
Yeah. I think the fact that it is low maintenance and has a low interest rate is great. The red flag or the caveat, so how can this go badly? It can go badly, I think, if a couple ways. One is the value really 300 in that example? Like is the, when they do all those buy downs and all those credits and all that stuff, if you had to resell the property tomorrow, is it really worth 300? Or are you also going to have to do all those same things in order to sell the property?
Right.
That's because the value of real estate is the value you could resell it for in addition to the rent you have. So I think that's the thing you got to be careful of is like if you buy in bulk and if there's a subdivision with 150 other people just like you who are also investors, you're now in a subdivision where there's not a retail value. Like it's almost like when you're in a partnership with a bunch of other investors. Like the only people you can sell it to are the other investors, not a retail buyer. Yeah. And so I think that what I'm trying to say there is like you got to double check the location. Like that's a fundamental of all real estate. Like that's one of the reasons I like infill development a little bit better because I like the fact that there's owner occupants living on either side of me. If you buy, I don't like buying in neighborhoods where it's all investors. Like I think that's a downside because number one, they might not take care of the property as well as you do. Like you choose to upgrade it, they choose to let it go. Let it go and not do anything.
You don't want a neighborhood full of landlords, special landlords, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other part though is just the financing and the value of it. So I like smaller build to rent projects. So my friend Ariel and I was saying they do like 10, 15 projects, but they're in the middle of a bunch of other owner occupied stuff. Or the stuff I'm doing with my builder, there's people who live there on either side of it, and we're building these little small clusters of houses here and there. Those to me are much more appealing. I would be super careful about, unless you own the whole subdivision, I'll be super careful about being one of like 20 or 30 or 50. Those make me a little bit more nervous.
So I think what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is basically if the quote unquote value is 300K, but everyone is buying this flash sale for 250K, well, the comps are public. So if everyone's buying it for 250K, all you've really done is now made all those houses in that neighborhood worth 250K.
Correct.
So it's not ever going to be worth 300K until that fire sale is over and appreciation has done its thing for a few years.
100%. That's the deal. You need to be ready to hold for the next 20, 30 years. It might still be a good deal, like maybe, but there's going to be a dip. The value's going to go down, or they already are down. So you need to be realistic about that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, for as long as that fire sale is going, fire sale is probably a harsh way to put it, but basically, like for as long as that kind of deal is on the table, selling that thing is going to be impossible, because why on earth would someone pay you more than 250 in this arbitrary example where all the houses are quote unquote worth 300, but credit's down to 250, whatever, right? Why on earth would someone buy it used for 250 when they could just go and buy the new one for 250?
Correct.
And so you almost have to wait for inventory to sell out, and then you'll have a shot at selling it again. Otherwise, you're just competing with like new home sales.
Yep. I'll tell you a better deal that I would rather do. Like, I'm kind of playing around with this in my local town because I'm trying to be all three. Like I've built the houses before. I've partnered with the builder. I also have a partnership where we just have some extra capital, and I don't want to spend that much time on it. And I'm like, let's just buy a retail like property. And so I like the deal where you go to like a local builder or even a national builder, but you buy into a subdivision where other people live there. They're already buying it. I think you can avoid that problem by being selective about, you got to be really choosy about the builder you buy from in the first place. And you might be able to negotiate that deal with them directly. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of learning myself. But I think that's such a big problem that the job you have to do buying retail build to rent is picking the location and picking the builder. Like that's the forever decision. So you got to do that right.
Which makes sense why you like the stuff that's in the city, kind of within the neighborhoods or something like that, because at that point, you're now competing with all of the houses, old, new, and all that stuff. And if the quantity or the supply is limited, then at that point, as soon as everything gets offloaded faster, and you can calibrate a lot quicker than you can with maybe some of these bigger developments.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so to recap, we've got do it yourself, go out, put on the tool bag. No, I'm just kidding. Just go out and find the lot, work with the contractor. GC, in a sense, you're kind of managing the contractor. Partner with the builder. So you put up the cash, builder goes out and builds it. This can mean many different ways. And then lastly, build to rent retail. Go to a vendor that has a catalog of new constructions that offer incentives. Just make sure that, the price you see is actually what the house is worth. Anything else that I missed, kind of any other big points that we missed or ahas or got yous in the world of new construction?
Keep the long-term objective in mind. Like this is to me like the biggest problem with any strategy. Like any like short-term rentals, long-term rentals, build to rent, BRRRR strategy. These are all great strategies, right? But like the fundamentals of analyzing an investment, they're across the board. They're always the same. So like one thing I see a lot of people do when I'm working with students is they let the glittery new strategy kind of defer them or distract them from the fundamentals of what makes a good real estate deal. And I can say it really simply: buy in good locations that have like good long-term growth prospects, and then buy them with financing that allows you to cash flow it today. Yeah,
location is the greatest amenity.
Yeah,
no matter what, what the real estate vehicle is, a good location usually makes most deals pan out over the course of 20, 30 years of owning it.
Yeah. So cliche, all the realtors say location, location, location. It's you kind of roll your eyes, but like that's
how I know it's a good deal when it's all caps and it says location, location, location in an MLS deal. I'm like, oh my goodness, run, don't walk.
Yeah. Let's buy this. Come on. Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Well, dude, I think we gave some really good value today. I've really enjoyed this. One of my favorite talks I ever had with Chad was about the underrated strategy of paying off all of your debt and paying off your mortgages. Kind of a hot take in the world of real estate. A lot of people went back and forth in the comments. If you're interested in understanding our philosophy there, then you are going to want to click right here to watch that video. I promise you, it's one of the best podcasts. If not, I think it's the best podcast I've ever done on the channel. So we'll see you over there next. Oh yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe, as always. Bye.